Hit report.
Oh, I don't know.
All right, roll call. We got Brian,
Here.
Justin,
Here.
John,
Here.
Jeff,
Here.
Russia here too.
Here. Before approving the agenda, I'd like to ask that we move the two resolutions for this evening to the front of the agenda. If that would be all right, and I'll need a motion to do that, please.
Make a motion to move the two resolution items to the top of the agenda.
I'll second.
Brian, I.
Justin, I.
John, Jeff, I. Motion carries. So we will open up with the item A, resolution scheduling public hearing to rezone parcel 141140000, parcel 141140005 from A1 agriculture to C2 general commercial.
These are the two farthest east ones.
Yes, that is correct.
This is the one that the letter went out that was.
That we had to redo the letter.
We did. Yes,
It'll go out tomorrow, actually.
When we-
We can't do it till we set the public hearing, so the letter is ready and stamped and ready to go. Yep. And it will be published, the public hearing will be published as well tomorrow.
I'll make the resolution to schedule the public hearing to rezone parcel 14114000004 and parcel 141140005 from A1 agriculture to C2 general commercial. Will propose to set that public hearing for October 22.
I'll second.
Brian, I.
Justin, I.
John, Jeff, I. Motion carries. Next up then, resolution scheduling a public hearing for fiscal year 25 garbage percentage rates for customers who are not in the corporate boundary of the city of Piasta.
This is to set it for the,
So the public hearing has already been set for the water and sewer. We just didn't include.
oh,
Going to make it then include the garbage.
same night.
for the 22nd.
So we can
One
do it all
hearing for all
together.
three. Sure. All right, gotta add garbage.
So I may have missed the meeting. Is there a reason that we are going to 200% or whatever we want to go to? Is there additional cost to us?
Because this is part of the whole outside the city corporate limit.
Up until now, we've been talking about water and sewer.
Well, this has always been increased. This was back in
It's been
2015,
Lined up.
right? So they just align up,
It's 150 now. It's
right?
Suppose we could separate them all, but they're treating them all as utilities.
Right, I guess I wasn't aware
This is one of, yeah, when they,
I wasn't aware they paid 150.
They do because now they're also able to use the compost, the yard waste
It's not a comp.
So that's when it changed?
Yeah, it just changed this.
in July.
So I thought we changed the fee.
We just added it at the fiscal year.
I thought we had a fee.
The fee is the extra 50%.
I thought it was just, that's, I'm not confused. I thought it was just a flat fee.
Nope.
A fee. I thought it was 50.
And
It wasn't much, it was like
Yeah.
$8. or-
Right.
Right, yep,
Yeah.
But
exactly.
I know we went back and forth. I must have missed the meeting.
Yeah. I'll make a motion for the resolution to schedule a public hearing for fiscal year 25 garbage percentage rates for customers that are not in the corporate boundary of the city of Piasta to set that for October 22.
I'll second it.
Brian, I.
Justin, I.
Jeff, I. Motion carries. I'll open up the discussion for water, sewer, garbage rates outside of the city limits. Where would we like this?
So Annette and Marcy, thanks for doing that detail work and going backwards. Marcy, thank you for the detail work. It's good. So it looks like if I'm understanding it correctly, we've collected the extra 50% that we've collected since we started in 2014 is around 400,000, 411,000.
correct, yes.
That's what we've collected toward, I guess, the net $900,000 investment, right?
And that report also, G-Works they really helped her out a lot trying to get this information put together, and you'll see how many water meter customers that we had back in 2015,
Yeah.
leading up to current.
I thought we had more like 140 some customers. It's just like 100. Because there's extra meters.
Just like come up with that number and I don't know where she or how she came up with that number because 136 is how many meters we read every month. And there's like
Got you.
5 or 6 residents that have 2 meters.
Right. Remember-
So it's really 100.
So now it's an accurate count.
Right.
You know how many customers we have. It does explain why our math was different so many times because we were using rough numbers of 100 or 150 And it started around 96 and now it's 130. So now we've got real data. It's helpful.
So the discussion tonight is about future needs. Included in that discussion is a new water tower that will help to satisfy the water needs over at TRE. And then other items that may come up. So we've got a fund, because there is not a fund set up for right now. So if anything catastrophic should happen in that part of the system, it would be very difficult to put together how to finance that. But we're trying to determine what's a number in a fund that makes sense? And what's the time frame to get there?
So are we looking at putting that extra 50%, just the extra?
Well, that's what we need to discuss. You can see that we're collecting what, roughly 63?
63 would be the increased amount. So if you wanted to take the whole 100%, it'd be double that.
So 100.
I feel like with what we're already collecting, we should have covered most of our administration, taking care of the system in that 150%. So this.
But we
Yes.
still have two bonds that we're paying for.
Yes.
One was issued in 2013, that'll be paid off next year.
On the past water project.
June of 25, yeah.
And then 2017-8, that'll be paid off in 2028. So we're still have accruing debt that we're trying to pay down.
So you're saying that if we were to move it to 200, that extra 50% for the 150 to 200 would go to the,
Into
build
a
a
general
fund.
fund.
and then the 150 would still be the other.
50 would still run our.
Well, so I think we need to make a
administrative
decision when we have this conversation. Is are we gonna take a look at that first initial investment and let's use this now moving forward? Right? We had this conversation, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
So which,
Yeah.
are we gonna do that or are we gonna do both?
I think we have to talk through both. I mean, so we got a $900,000 net investment. We've collected 400 against it. If we go, we'll wipe the slate clean and we're trying to build a fund for the future. The question is, how much should be in that fund and how fast do we want to get there? That's one of the questions that I've got. So when I look at the work that the city staff did, if the things break and they're dedicated to TRE, we have to replace, I mean, it's roughly 290 to 300 grand of potential replace, repair, protect ourselves, protect TRE's, the investment in TRE. That's 300 grand. So we don't have anything in a fund now. We collected 400, but it's in the general fund.
Right.
We can't really, I asked you this earlier today by email, we can't pull that out and earmark it. It doesn't really exist. That water fund has fund balances that we have to maintain. So how fast do we get to 300 grand? Because that protects us against investments in TRE in the future, should they be needed. And then there's the participation of TRE in the 4.5 to 6 million water tower project, that's a different thing. So I'm trying to think about this on multiple levels. We're accruing the 50% extra now. We're accruing 63,000 additional a year.
Correct.
Right. So I'm not super good at math, but 5 years to get us to 300 grand.
And that's without any debt service payment.
Right.
That's not without any.
But some of
any
the
kind repairs,
50s
replacement.
go into the debt service payment stuff that we're doing now. I mean, theoretically, conceptual. That's why we're charging them more, right? I mean, so just to get ourselves insulated against protecting the TRE investment, we need to accrue 300,000. Then we need to have a discussion about participation in the new development, because they're going to have some piece of that as well. And how fast do we want to do that? So at 150%, it's 63,000 a year. 200%, it's 127,000 a year. So we get to the, at 200%, we get to the 300,000 insulation with nothing toward future investments and nothing toward current bond payments. Right?
Correct.
Beyond what we have.
How many total customers do we have?
130. Oh, you know,
In total, like everybody.
For everybody, a little over, not quite 1,000.
Yeah, just under 1,000, I would say. I'm trying to think, because we've got 3 different routes. We've got the TRE routes, which is 136, and then there's like 700 and some. But we've also been continuing to try to switch out those meters for the touch reads, and there were 240, but I know they've changed them out, so.
are you trying to get at what percentage of total customers is TRE? What is it?
Oh, yeah, we,
10%?
10%.
14, yeah.
Yep.
And some of those estimates on some of those lines that supply multiple areas, you know, Dean's best estimates were 10% is benefiting TRE and 90% is benefiting the rest of the system. So if we do 10%, then that's another 450,000 toward future investments that we want to accrue for. Now we're at 750 grand over some time period that we want to build up in that fund.
And we can only build it as fast as obviously the current rates are,
The rate.
the increases that we have moving forward.
Right.
and we can take whatever percentage we want. I've already talked to G-Works, and we can do it at a monthly transfer, or every time their payment is posted, that money can go right into the
Yeah.
reserve account. We could put a whole 100% of it, and then you don't have to decide, you can decide at the end of the year or whatever, say, okay,
What to do
here's
with it.
how much we want, and we want to transfer 50% of that to go towards the debt we still have, and we want 50% to be left in the reserve account, but, or we can set up 2 separate reserve, I mean, whatever you want to do, we have the ability to do that. It might be a good idea just to keep it all going
I'm
over
kind of
there.
like one reserve, and I'm kind of, the way I think about it is everything over 100%, we're putting in that reserve, so we can clearly see it. We can always move it around.
Yeah, because you can always
We
do
need to,
But I
transfers at
think,
the end of
I
the year.
think though, before we decide where we're gonna put it, we as a council need to make a decision. Are we moving forward or are we looking backwards and looking?
Yeah.
Right?
Right. And I think we're moving forward.
But now we're
I
talking
think
about
it's too hard to look backward personally, but. because it's
applying
in
it
the fund.
to the debt.
And
Well,
I
and
think,
we're talking about the debt that we're still paying on future.
For the
and I
next
think,
3
I think
years.
that has to be considered taken care of in the 150.
And this extra 50 just goes.
So I think we're talking 3 different things here, because we haven't even talked about how much we want to go above.
Right,
We're just talking about the extra 50,
Whatever extra percentage we come.
the extra 50. Right now, what we're collecting now gets us $63,000.
there is an extra 50 now, and it's 63 every year.
Right,
Yeah.
so now what we're talking about is either are we gonna take a look at that for initial investment as a sunk cost? Okay, or are we going to take some of the 63 and pay that towards that? Right, and build our fund?
What do you want to do?
I don't know, I'm just, before we decide all this other stuff, we gotta know what we're dealing with, right? We don't know, like, if we're gonna take half and half and go towards the initial investment.
Doesn't the 150 cover, right now, we'd say covers debt services that
For some of debt
we are
service,
paying on
I would think.
for the system that's already in place. And
That is.
the administration, the extra administration costs above and beyond what we normally pay.
We,
It's
yeah,
all-
we just haven't decided what we're doing, because I know the last meeting we talked about, especially when TRE was here, is that we are now basically drawing a line in the sand
Right.
and looking forward. What
That's,
this- what
that's
this-
how I'm
That's
approaching
what-
it.
Right,
Yeah.
so
I
that's
feel
what we
like-
need to decide is what we want.
I feel like the 150% is already being applied towards debt
Debt
service
services, all that stuff.
and all that stuff. So that's why this to me is, anything over the 150 is strictly
Is to build the fund.
forward, build the fund to help pay for improvements that are already in the works, i.e. the water tower and those types of things. It's not to pay debt service that we already incurred.
So when that debt gets paid off, will that initial 50% come off?
We can talk about it.
Once you have the 300,000 in the reserve account.
Well, it's
I'm
300.
just asking,
it's
'cause these are
750.
questions gonna be asked us.
I feel like the 10-year, the deal, it's a 10-year history. It was a bad deal on both sides.
It's
It's
awful.
probably easiest to
Yeah,
just
awful, yeah.
go, we're gonna leave what's happened and try to do something clean forward. I mean, it goes against my nature to not pay back past investments, but I don't know how you do that,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
They entered they thought it was a good faith agreement. We thought we were gonna use the well. We ended up not being able to. All those things.
I think they knew they were. gonna be
I think they
able to start with.
Well, somebody knew they weren't. Somebody knew they couldn't. We didn't.
Yeah, I wanna eat. Yeah.
Sorry?
We had a couple people that joined us that
Okay.
were muted, so I muted her.
Hi,
So I guess that's the
what do you think
decision.
about that, John?
I mean, I guess that's the decision we make is I struggle doing both.
I do too.
I think that if we sit here and keep on thinking about back,
Yeah. we
Yeah,
can't-
and I feel like
we
we,
can't
I
fix
feel
the
like
past.
we drew that line in the sand at that last meeting.
I felt that way too.
That's how I feel. So I would like to discuss how do we get to.
And how fast
How
and
fast
how
we go.
much.
Right.
So
And then if we do fill it, is there something written in there that backs it back down once that's taken care of? That was your follow-up question.
No, I guess my question is, are we gonna, okay, there's, what's the balance we have left on what we paid?
900,000.
Yeah,
Oh, on the debt part? No, I was the investment, the net
1.3,
investment.
wasn't it?
Yeah, but, and then we collected the 400 against it. So we're at a net of 900,000 sunk cost. Roughly.
That's what I was asking.
Got it.
That was that,
Yeah.
her other
So-
spreadsheet.
So that 900,000
So
should be paid off by 2028? Or when you said you were throwing out dates on debt service?
This is all the bond issuances. This goes all the way back to 2006
Okay.
when we were talking about the sewer. So these are just the two bond
Two open
issuances that
bonds
we
still
have.
have, everything else has already been closed.
That haven't matured yet.
Okay.
The one, it has a final payment in June of 180 plus interest, and that one is 100% TRE. And then the other one
Are-
is paid off June of 28.
Correct. And
Our
that's back.
investment in TRE was 1.3 million. We've collected the extra 50%. We've collected 400,000 and change against that. We're at a net sunk investment cost of $930,000.
So the question is,
The first question.
first question is, do we continue with this? Let's just use the original 150%.
Mhm.
Continue earmarking it towards that? Or do we draw the line in the sand
And all.
and say that's sunk? Now, going forward, anything above 100 is going towards that fund.
That's not how I was viewing it, but I'm not,
That's the way we presented it to them last.
How are you, talk through how you're viewing it.
I guess I was looking at the additional with the 150%
They're at
there.
150, you're treating that as a current level.
Right,
You're
and
going
it's still paying on that debt service or however you want to look at that. So my thought was it was anything above the 150 was what was going to go into a separate fund for future.
So you're kind of thinking of the existing 50, the existing 63 a year is still kind of going back, paying that remaining
because
900.
Yeah, I mean,
And then anything new, we.
because we're not looking to raise it because we want to pay that debt service off quicker or anything. So that is still in place.
I see.
So we're,
That's how you're going to keep them even with the
So
citizens.
then my
Right.
question is,
yep,
when we get to that
So when
1.3 number, does that 50% come off? Or do we just keep on collecting that to build into the,
well, we
It's
can,
not 1.3, it's 930 because we've collected.
well, I'm of the 1.3 number that we started with.
Right.
Right. So
It's,
then does that 50% come off once we get to the 1.3 number?
It goes.
I think you still have the administration costs and all the other stuff that's above and beyond. That's what that 1.5% or
All right.
150 is covering.
Just so we've
It's
got,
not covering.
we got a benchmark. If we
Maintenance.
take the existing 50% above their 100 and we say we're accruing it in our mind toward the remaining 900 at 63,000 a year, that we catch up in 2032.
Okay.
Okay,
okay.
So in
Without taking on any other
2032,
debt,
well, in 2032, will that 50%?
that's
come off?
eight years.
but that's with not doing anything else to.
That's up
So
to
that's
an
if
extra 50%.
nothing additional happens. So if we're accruing
But no,
more,
but I'm
then
saying,
Yeah,
in the 9 years, would you say 9 years?
it'd be 2032.
2032, I'm assuming we're gonna have more than the $300,000 accrued in the.
But we're also talking about 750 if we're talking about
Yeah.
new.
In
Yeah, I mean, I
in that amount of time, we're at 63,000, 63,
Yeah, if we
right? We're
did,
gonna have.
if we're going for a new
Through
750,
the debt that we still have in
Yeah.
14.5 years.
to get a new 750, we've got to accrue 63,000 a year till 2029.
I missed that, I'm sorry.
To get a new 50, a new 50%, to go from 150 to 200, that incremental 50%. to accrue a fund to get $750,000 toward the risk of failure and the portion of the new well service. That's about 750,000. That will take us to 2029. And with a new 50% additional. I'm just.
That seems awful short.
63 a year.
Is that taking
750
2, 3,
divided
4,
by-
5 years. Unless my formulas are wrong.
Yeah, I think so.
take a lot, almost 12
Yeah, I
years?
say it's almost,
And that's going at 64,000.
Yeah,
it's 12.
it's
yeah,
63,000. That's how many years it's gonna take you to get to
11.9. I must have.
almost 12 years. 7.5, 12 years
Should be about.
to get to 750. If that's
Took
the
that
number.
last 50 to pay off the old debt, it takes another, it'd take 14
Yeah.
years to get.
So
that
the
paid off.
question that John has raised is at the point that we pay off the old, does that 50% drop off? And then if we go to 200,
To 100.
we drop back to 150 at that point.
In, what did we say,
Well,
11 years?
Well, 11 years would be the new 50% to get to the fund.
Okay, well, how many years at this rate will we pay off that debt?
which one? Which debt?
The original,
At the current rate,
yes.
You said that's what you said, 2032?
2032, just to pay off the existing debt, not with anything
Right,
accruing toward the
right. So
new.
in 8 years,
Right.
if,
I don't think that's right. Because if it was 900,000, it'd take like 14 years
It's-
to pay that off.
Why are we letting Brian do math?
You shouldn't. Well, maybe I have a spreadsheet problem. I tried to do
So
that.
14 years, all
You're
15
using,
years?
you're using 900,000, dividing it by 64,000?
14.
That's 14
That's
years.
14 years.
14,
Yeah.
14 to 15.
It's probably compounding the accrual.
Okay, and
I
then
did try to do
750 is what you're proposing for like the reserve emergency fund?
Right.
Then that divided by 64,000, knowing that that 64 will go up a little each year. That's gonna be just over 11 years. Let's just say 11
You know,
years.
we gotta handle it in current dollars because
Right.
we're not, I mean.
So
there
you
could
just
be
say
customer
11 or
data.
12 years. So that will be paid off in 14 years, but keeping in mind that debt will be paid off, because now we have the reserve money. We're taking out another, we're taking out SRF loans to build a water tower. So like that.
right, but that's what that extra, part of that extra 50%, that extra.
Extra.
Yeah,
Is gonna be towards.
So the 900,000,
They're paying
2036
10%.
is really when that comes off the books.
so you're looking at total
Yeah.
16 years roughly.
Sounds like.
Yeah, roughly.
So let's just for sake of discussion, what are our risks if we ignore the 900,000, we treat it as a sunk cost? Our risks are anything more required as the citizens of Piasta.
Never-
Right.
If we had a catastrophic failure.
We had a catastrophic
now,
failure, yeah.
And
Whatever the funds
But I
bill.
was, okay, we're talking, what is our, if we take that 900,000 that's left on the debt,
Instead of thinking about paying back against,
let's say that is a sunk cost that goes away.
yeah, if we treated
Doesn't
it
go
as,
away.
it doesn't go away.
Right.
It's borne by the taxpayers of
So
Piasta.
what's the question? I missed, I just want to make sure I understood that part of it.
If we treat all the extra accrual toward fund development and toward future expenses,
So then you'd
and we
have,
try to get it balanced right to, capture a reserve fund. for
you'd have to come up
PRE.
with $1 million, basically, of fund cost. You got
750.
the
750.
750
Yeah.
plus the 300 for their failure part.
No, it was,
No, that was
300 was the
300.
failure and then
450.
a 4.5 to $6 million well,
the 10%.
10%, I put 450 under the 300, that's how I got,
So you
that's
got
the low.
750.
That's
It
how we
is,
got to
it's 750 to 900,000 is what
So in 10 years.
we'd be trying to accrue.
Right.
So if we took the whole 128, it'd take just shy of 6 years. If we took that whole extra 100% and put it in.
If we move that
We
up.
went from 150 to 200, we treated.
And we treated the whole 100
As
extra 100
increments.
But I
What happens-
don't agree that the whole 100
should go.
should go there.
Okay.
I mean, they're outside the city limits. We have extra costs just doing that,
Continue to serve.
continuous to serve them.
And that's kind of where you are too.
Yeah, that's exactly where I'm.
Some
That's-
pays back to
yeah.
the past and the additional pays forward to the future.
Well, then you still have meter cost and
They pay for
reading
the meter.
They pay
administrative.
for those. And they put the meters in, they pay for the meters, right?
Yes.
They pay for install.
Those are set by fee.
That was right. That was, yeah.
They're not.
On a new meter, you're saying, or on a replacement meter?
Either.
Either, both, aren't they paid for when they happen? Or
When
replacement
someone's
meters part
building
of
a
the
property,
fund?
they come in and they pay $450 to purchase them.
The new one
The
they buy,
contractor did, yes, but when we have to replace them,
that's
That's
water
on
fund
us,
cost. Okay.
Yeah.
That probably doesn't happen a ton.
well, we still have about 240 to swap out.
Yeah,
So that
yeah,
everybody's on
all
a
of-
radio not touch.
All of those new waves.
So at the 750 that we need in a fund,
750 to 9, depends on how big that next well costs us, 4.5 to 6. But 750 is the bottom line, probably.
You'd be
Of
looking
fund
at
approval.
probably-
yeah, I mean, it's a number we gotta work with something.
Yeah, so what is 750 divided by 63,000?
Go by 60.
11.7 years.
Are
So
we
that's
feel good about that?
So well,
12 years.
Is that, so that
That's if you go on
64, that's if we
50.
stay at 150 and we look at the other thing as sunk
Stay at
cost.
150, it's going toward the sunk cost, that extra
It'll get us to that fund in just shy of 12 years.
12 years.
With an extra 50%.
When we
With
build the
just- With just
tower,
150, way it is now.
what is that?
If we look at it as sunk cost.
Oh. Yeah, but I don't look at it as on cost. I look at it as it's still paying.
You're still trying to
I guess,
recoup.
yeah,
That's what I'm saying, we gotta get to that point, we gotta get to that point.
Yeah.
What we're going forward with.
well, my feeling is the 150 is still paying
For what we've already
for what
done.
we've already done.
So you're gonna.
The over and above is not anything but going for future funds, my mind. I feel,
And future funds would be for repairs for TRE and participation in the rest of the water system.
Correct.
At a certain point, we gotta protect the city in case anybody else wants to jump on that's not city to, I mean, and that would be.
I'm not concerned with that right now. I mean, I know it's something,
We're talking about a 10-year timeframe, so
Yeah, it
lots can
could,
happen.
it is, you're right, but
Lots can happen in 10.
Mayor, can I jump in? We have a meeting tomorrow with Heidi Cool. She does all of our bond preparation. She does the rate studies for us. That was part of our conversation, is to have this with her tomorrow. I think that tonight, if I can make a recommendation, that we need to decide collectively, are we moving forward with it? We can get the information, we can ask Heidi to, this is as soon as that we could get in with her. We tried to get a meeting last week, so we'd have this information prepared. But I think having that meeting with her tomorrow and asking her to expedite it so that we can have it to you for your review before the meeting next week.
Yeah.
Rather than sitting here and trying to figure it out. I think that,
Will she be able to answer the question if we take bond issuance for this next tower, like how long that bond is likely to be?
well, it'll be an SRF. It will not be a bond.
Okay,
And it's probably going to be 20 to 30-year debt,
okay. So it's not, it's well past that 10-year horizon.
right? So therefore, having that discussion with her, looking at not only what the cost is going to be for the new projects coming up, but the issuance, the administrative costs, all the other costs that are included in on that too.
Interest.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
obviously, we had to wait till we get there, right? We can guesstimate
I'm
now,
not sure
but
what you're asking.
yeah, what are you asking us to do now?
well, I think it's probably, I thought the discussion tonight was to look at what we were doing.
Yeah,
And make a
and
decision if
how
we're gonna.
aggressively we want to get there. Right, we were supposed to be.
Sure,
but I
How
think
fast
that-
do we want to accrue and what are we trying to accrue toward?
But I think Heidi is that person that will be able to tell us how fast we can accrue it. Based on the given numbers and then based on the debt that we will be incurring with the new water tower and well.
It's also our comfortable level of
Sure.
where we feel it's,
Just.
what our comfortable level is, how quickly we want to accrue it or how slowly we want to accrue it.
Yeah, I mean,
I think I'd rather come to a number tonight and then bounce it off of her than.
Right.
yeah,
Than have her try to tell us what that number would
I
be.
agree.
I don't know if.
I think we have to get on the same philosophical page about,
175, like. It all depends on how fast we want to get there.
well, I think 11 years is a long time, so I probably don't want it to take longer than that.
I think that's.
But I'm willing to, I mean, 11 to 12 years and we're taking out a 20 to 30-year SRF. That seems reasonable. But part of that's got to be, we're accruing the fund for TRE for their repairs. I mean, part of that's got to be earmarked.
Stay there,
We
yeah.
can't earmark any of the prior 411 because it's
Mhm.
tucked in the overall fund.
That's where it's done.
I was giving them credit for the prior
Right.
400. That's what it might be. 11 years.
So what numbers?
So 11 years is 200%. What you're
But I,
saying.
but I, but I think we got to get back to that philosophical
We're never gonna do that.
ideas are, what about that 900,000? I mean, you're at a standpoint
I
of
kinda-
absolutely, no, this original 150
Yep.
is gonna continue paying that way,
Yes.
right?
I kind of feel that if we can do it that way, I kind of feel like when we expunge that 900,000, we should drop that
Yeah,
incremental
minimum.
50.
I mean, that.
So if we
has
go
to-
from 150 to 200, at the point that 900 is paid for, if something else hasn't changed, I think we should write it so it forces us to
We
drop
can
it back.
absolutely do that.
And we're still accruing, we'd still be accruing an incremental 50 toward future fund. And earmarking it for that. None of us might be on the council by then. None of us might be on the council by the next
It would
election.
fall off to
So
14 years. That extra 50% would.
Or is it more of a whatever comes first? We hit this $750,000 mark, or the debt is paid off and then we drop one of those.
The problem with
I-
the 750 mark is today's repairs.
that's today.
That's
Exactly.
today's cost in 10 years.
But we're never gonna be out of debt, because we're always gonna
No.
have debt.
I think it keeps going.
So we can't really lower it to not pay the
I
debt,
think it
because
needs to.
that's what the 50% is to pay the debt. The other 50% is to build a reserve, right? So I think you have to say, once we hit the reserve, we are going to lower it,
Yeah, once
because
you
you're
get
never gonna be
whatever
out of the
magic
debt,
number you want.
50% portion. And then at that
What
point,
do you mean we're never gonna be out of debt?
well, because we're gonna take out a loan for the water, I mean, it's gonna take longer to.
This
get
is,
through the-
But we do
this
another
first
one.
initial 50% is about that initial
The
1.3
investment
cost.
we've already made,
that we've already done. That's what we just talked about,
that
right?
we owe 900 on.
So once that's paid in this theory, then that goes away. Now, we're gonna have debt in the future, but that's part of the 750 that we want to have in the bucket.
So of the water tower project, I think that
Correct.
That's coming out of that.
Because that was the 10% that we discussed.
4.5 million, which would be the bottom end of the new.
It's the bottom end.
and you're taking,
Yeah,
and you're
that's
using
400.
10%.
I just
Right.
used 10% of the bottom end of that water tower project. That's 450 plus the 300 for their reserve. fund
Gotcha,
for
I didn't
repairs.
catch where you're getting
That's how
all
I
those
got
numbers.
the 3
We
quarters
got
of a million.
750.
Brian's back of the envelope, man.
And that's depending on what it ends up costing. Obviously, we
Yeah.
can't, I don't think we can put like a certain date on it, but you could put something like at this, when this occurs, it could change, it could
We would
drop.
review,
Just say
We could,
Fine.
we could review it annually and see where our accrual is and how much we've spent back against that remaining 900 and just keep it in front of the council.
Revisit it in 10 or.
Revisit it in 5 years and 10
I'm sure
years.
where that 450 was going.
But be interesting to see what the water tower project really comes in at.
Yeah,
I mean, 4.5 to 6 is a pretty wide guess.
It's a bigger range.
So do we go 200% or 175 or one?
well, I know originally we were talking about doing it in steps. But that was, first step was supposed to be July 1st. That was the original goal. And again, when we're talking, 12, 15, 20 years. No, I mean, if we do 200% January 1st or 175 January 1st or
Doesn't
200%
matter.
in July isn't moving the needle to make it one way or another.
Well, I think 11 years is a long period of risk for the citizens of Piasta, so I lean toward the
200.
incremental 50, just go to 200. But I'd like to see if we can build in the discipline that when that prior debt is paid, if we have the ability to back that off, that we do.
We review it at that time.
I
I mean,
think it's
and I-
gotta be written that we do.
and I've heard you say it's like, taxes never go down, so that's our problem. It's
Right,
like
I
we
wanna
have
try-
to set ourselves a discipline, so we force ourselves to do it,
Sure.
or future councils have to overturn it. But I don't want to be here in 5 or 6 years and have to take out a big debt for the citizens of Piasta and pay this.
You'd have a good chunk of it in there by then.
You
Maybe
would.
50%. Using the extra 50%.
Yeah, that would make up the difference. Good point.
I'd be okay there.
And I'd start
something in there
January
that
1.
says.
I'd start, I wouldn't go backwards.
No, I'm not going back.
We want to give people a chance to prepare.
We can't go.
We're not gonna go back.
That'd be an accounting nightmare.
Like, I don't wanna go retroactive on, but,
Yeah.
do you want, so you wanna wait until the first of the year to do it?
I think by the time.
To move it from one, by the time we get through.
Public hearing and do 3 readings and they won't be. I mean, we're already at the end of October, so.
Now, that will take us to the end of November,
In
and then
November,
we have to
December.
work it, G-Works to get everything set up internally.
We're looking at that
Start being
anyway.
January 1.
Right, earliest is probably January 1.
I'd be okay with that.
So philosophically, we're in agreement that the existing 50% overage is going to continue to be, in our minds, it's paying back toward the
Right, the original.
original 1.3 investment that we've collected 400 against. So we got 900 to spend off yet.
Right.
And any incremental 50% is we're accruing into the fund on their behalf, dedicated.
So that extra 50 goes into.
Goes into a TRE fund
And stays.
and stays there for repairs. And I guess at some point toward contribution, we'd probably move some of that toward contribution to the new water tower.
How much of that are we gonna?
Right.
towards it?
Hmm.
Well,
How much of that are we gonna?
If we're,
No,
if we're
that'd be
using
kind of
10%,
10%.
I mean.
10%.
And just to keep it clear, what I would probably propose from like the accounting side is either setting up one account or 2 separate ones and doing like all of it in one. And then at the end of each fiscal year, we transfer that much out and say, okay, that way it's clear and we don't have to go back and run a bunch of reports to figure out how much that was.
Simple.
Or do 2 separate accounts. One is the permanent like reserve/future, and the other one is going back. And then as every year we can take that money and put it towards the debt. So just to make that way, we don't have to pull 10 years worth of, oh, we hit the number, we're gonna know it's gonna be
Yeah, definitely.
Because we don't want to
Simple.
mess like we've ever.
2 accounts, or I can do 1 account and divide it, take half of it out every year.
It's an easy paper trail.
Yeah.
Care, do you have a preference? I mean, I don't care how we administratively track it, as long as we can
I think
account proper.
it's easier to
Follow up with. it.
track
I think,
both of
you know,
them, right?
internally,
Keep
we
2
can get that
separate
figured
ones.
out.
We can figure out what's gonna work
And
better
then you can
on the
just set
G-Works
the-
side too, because when we post a payment, the money comes in and we by percentages, so it might be easier to
I'd like
do.
to see both.
Both
I'd like to see both numbers, the prior debt being retired and the accrual
Being
for
built.
future things being built. So if we can, however we can do it that way. 2 funds.
It's just, well, I'll check with G-Works to see how complicated it is for them to help me set that up.
Okay.
Because it's
You guys
all
can
done on
figure it out.
percentages, so at the end of the day, though, it's half of whatever's in there at the end of the fiscal year.
Yeah.
Then we just do a transfer and
But do we want to revisit this in 10 years, knowing that it's gonna take 12 to get there?
I'd revisit it sooner than that.
I think annually would be good.
I mean, if it's part of our annual review of the water fund, we just add
or at budget time
Some-
every
Yeah,
year.
bullet
Yeah, budget
points,
time.
where are we at on this, where are we at?
I mean, an
Budget time.
actual, to revisit
I'll revisit the
the
rates.
ordinance
Yes.
for rates for that.
Yes, but I think he's saying we can revisit anytime, but we should build in a discipline that we force
I
ourselves to
think
bring it
in
back.
at budget time, that would be the easiest for us to do it then.
Then it's an annual.
That makes the sense.
Annually, it's
Yeah.
That's
It
fine
just makes sense, then we can look at it at that time.
Know where we're at.
with the
Here's what's
data.
left, here's where we're at, well, here's what's left, because it's gonna go up,
Transparent.
as rates increase and more residents come and, that.
This might not be our last water tower in the 10-year window.
So they don't
So
know.
So,
it might not, though. I mean. we-
That's why I say,
Yeah.
How much it gets posted or?
yeah, I was
Right.
gonna say, I guess.
I said-
I was just trying to figure out a way that they
Yeah.
can track it easier than looking through our whole budget process going, oh, that's our number.
They have to figure that out.
we'll get it figured out.
That's,
Open records request. They can always
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
get that data easily.
do we need to set a number we're looking at or not?
Also, every month we put reports out there, in the
200%
treasurer's report would
January
show every account, what the balances are.
Or do you want to see something like where it retires at? X amount of
Minimum's gotta be someone in there that shows that it retires once that debt's paid off, at minimum.
For the past.
Right. I mean,
I agree. Well, we can figure out what that is right now in today's dollars. It's the
930 though.
930 divided by 63. That's what it is.
That's the 14.
That's worst case scenario,
Uh,
because it could
why
be
is it
shorter,
That's current case scenario.
right, but
If nothing
as
breaks.
rates go up, You know what I said? That's worst
I
case
said in
scenario. It could
current
be
dollars,
sooner.
because we can't
Right.
guess,
And we
okay,
can't
in today's analysis.
But knowing
We
that
know
it
how
could
long
be
that will
sooner than what we're anticipating. It's
Yeah,
not gonna be
rates
long,
go up.
it shouldn't be longer. It should be.
Just
We were at 12 years. I mean, I highly doubt that you're gonna.
So we'll be generating more
I doubt you're
revenue
gonna
from that
lose
every year
4
to
years,
pay
so
the
if
stuff
you're
back
visiting
quicker.
10,
Fair enough. So I don't feel like we have to set an arbitrary number.
I think that just by reviewing it every year, we're gonna have a good sense of where we're at.
So the debt's paid off.
Exactly.
a revisit when the debt's paid off,
No, it just goes down.
goes back to.
We should be looking at the retirement of that prior debt every year, and then when it's done, we drop it.
Take 14 and a half years.
Either way, every year that money's gonna go into, whether it's a separate account or the joint account, it's gonna go and it's gonna be transferred probably to take care of debt service, right? So we can.
Know where it
Towards the
comes
debt.
from, Brenda.
So,
What's that?
yeah,
So that in. When the 930 is paid off. It reverts back to
The 150 level.
150 level.
Right.
Which would be roughly 14 years,
Or faster.
Or faster.
depending on the rates.
Depending on,
well, yeah. 12 to 17 years, depending on.
yep.
No.
That's a human.
No.
No.
All right, I think that's where we're at. Need a motion to adjourn. Yeah, motion second, Justin.
Brian, I.
Justin, I.
All right.
Got that. We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.